Cortes, and I'm a critic, and welcome back. It is time for the preview of the new season. And just a quick little side note, there has been some beyond the show things has happened. So a lot of my draft videos are on backlog, but due to the NFL season starting up, I have pushed this forward. But trust me when I say that all the draft review shows are, most of them already have been completed. They're just right now being rendered and being set in order. So those will be announced and those will come out, on a consistent basis. But since the NFL season is about to start in a few days, basically less than a week, I think it's time for myself, also, like many others, to decide how the NFL is going to play out. And since I normally do team by team, but due to time constraints, I condense it down to division by division. So we're going to start with the division that makes me the most excited, and we're going to talk about the NFC South. I think everyone else has got a chance to start their segue, and here we're going to start with the NFC South. Now, basically how it's going to go to, I'm going to do my highs, I'm going to do my lows, I'm going to do my MVPs, offense and defense candidacy. I'm going to talk about the 3 games that I believe are going to be most important to focus on the team. Basically trying to dictate this is going to be like, if this team is for real, they should win these games, or if this team needs to showcase they have improved, they need to win these games. So these are the games that I'm going to call, you kind of have to win these, at least to show, your fans and to everybody that you're kind of serious. So let's get down to it. We'll start with the NFC South and the team that I believe is still going to win the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now I understand there's a lot of hype about Atlanta. But we all have accepted sports as being a prove-it league. You got to prove that you are worth. And yes, they got Kirk Cousins, which, to remind everyone that does not know, Kirk Cousins hasn't really had the success in the postseason as many of people believe he probably should have. The Vikings' most successful season and getting to be within a game of the Super Bowl was with Case Keenum. And sometimes you take that away, the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, part of their ranks, has not done enough to showcase that he is worth. But the Falcons, I'm not going to call it desperate, but the Falcons are basically saying Kirk Cousins is way superior than what we have ever had at quarterback, basically since Matt Ryan. And since they kind of like gave up on Matt Ryan and tried to find their new way by putting Band-Aids in a very open gash wound, they couldn't do it. So talking about Tampa, they won it 3 years in a row. Baker Mayfield did it. And for whatever reason, it just seems that everyone just keeps thinking that somehow Tampa is going to regress so poorly that there's no way they're going to do it. Yes, I understand Simmons and Judon going to the Falcons does make them look good on paper. But I remind you, there have been other teams that look good on paper and have disappointed or have not reached the full expectations. So until I see otherwise, I can't help but feel like the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield and hopefully a revamped offensive line, that I can still see them being division champs again, as much as some Falcon fans don't want to hear it. But hey, there are some cases, even as a Buccaneer fan, I'm willing to accept that sometimes things don't go in your way. So for the Buccaneers, I still have them 10-7 though. The middle part of the season, they got the Ravens, they got the Niners, they got the Chiefs, and they got the Falcons. So they got a lot of tough ones. That's probably why week 7, week 9, and week 10, I have Baltimore, Kansas City, San Francisco. It's very nice that a lot of their big games, including games like against Philadelphia, the Bucs are the home team. So I guess that can be a little small in the Buccaneers' favor. The Kansas City game at Kansas City might be the one where I won't be surprised if the Bucs do lose, because let's be frank, the Chiefs are going for a three-peat, so confidence should be on the Chiefs. But looking overall for the Buccaneers, I can't help but feel like, dude, a lot of your big opponents, you guys are the home team. So even if that counts, even 10% better in the Bucs' favor, sometimes you gotta take that. And sometimes we're banking a lot of the stuff we learned from these teams from last year. There's no guarantee they're going to be as great. There's no guarantee Lamar Jackson will win MVP again this year, or Mahomes. For all I know, Joe Burrow might be the MVP. We don't know. Maybe Baker Mayfield. I'm getting a little too ahead of myself for that statement, but that's how I'm feeling. So those are 3 games I believe if the Bucs can win 2 out of those 3 games, I think Buccaneer fan and maybe some of the NFL can be like, okay, Tampa is not just going to barely win the division. And I can't help but feel like the NFC South might be better than everyone gives them credit for, especially if they're feeling confident with Tampa and Atlanta being the 2 heavyweight fighters in that own division. Kind of hard to say it's going to be weak sauce when you're basically saying the Bucs and the Falcons are competing for first place, and 10 wins might win the division. Who knows? Maybe both teams win 12 games. We all can just shut up about it. It's a fun thing about football. We speculate, and then we're proven wrong, and then we make excuses. But I do see a low, and the low is 7-10. The low is because I still worry about the Saints. Falcons may be formidable. Falcons may sweep them, and Carolina could steal a game there. And not to mention the tough, heavier opponents like Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, and San Francisco. And Dallas towards the end of the season, who knows how they're looking at. They could be ending the season on a high, or they could be struggling just to get by. Cool rhyme there. So there's a lot of possibilities, but that's the low. Sometime the schedule will just be too formidable for them to overcome. So Bucs 7-10. As for the MVP candidates, I have Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield would be much more confident, and not going to say statistically greater, but if he gets 30 touchdowns, then I'll be saying then it's just proven that he is better. I understand the stipulation that last time he got a big contract after a playoff season with the Browns, he got hurt, and then he went through a quarterback carousel life. So I am really hoping that this will be the trend he breaks and proves that, yes, he is now obviously a mature and more veteran quarterback. So Baker Mayfield and Antoine Winfield are my MVP candidates for the Buccaneers. Then we go into my verdict. This team is still a playoff-bound team. Win the division, playoff-bound team. Do I see them going to conference championship? I'm not going to say that far ahead, but I'm going to say they are definitely looking to me that they're going to the playoffs. So that's the Buccaneers. And since I said the Buccaneers, let's talk about the number 2 team that's going to win. The Atlanta Falcons as the second place team. Now Atlanta, I also have them as a 10-7 also. I have that feeling that if they were to win, it will be similar to what the Buccaneers going through. And the big, I guess criticism I would say is that we have not seen these guys play. Take the whole Michael Penix Jr. draft out of it. We haven't seen Simmons adapt. Justin Simmons of all people was a free agent for months. And he finally gets signed with less than 2 weeks before the season even started. It just feels like, okay, if he was very valuable, why it took so long? And Judon was a trade that people even criticized that how much does Judon have left in the tank? Because I know when I did my draft review, I was criticizing about the Falcons' lack of pass rush. Has Judon come in to cover that up? I do not know. But I'm not going to say it's, worse than what they had. It's clearly an upgrade what they have. And yes, there have been some injuries to their players in this preseason. So my speculation of pass rushers has been heavily on how much can Judon take, the reins. So I'm going to say I need to see all this works. And I have always said within the first 4 weeks of the NFL season is basically a preseason for the starters, because we barely see enough in preseason, honestly, to make us say, okay, this team is going to be this, the team is going to be that. So a lot of it is based on what they have on paper, the players they have from last year's success. And so the first 4 weeks, we'll find out what the Falcons really are. Their big games are also games against teams that could determine their future. They go to Kansas City by week 9, so by the midway point. If this Falcon team wants to showcase they're considering Super Bowl contenders, what a great opponent than going against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Have fun with that. San Francisco comes to town after that week. And then the last part, week 16 at Dallas. Like I said, could Dallas be fighting for a division title against the Eagles? And could also the Falcons be trying to fight for a playoff talk and a division, talk about a great opportunity than going against a conference foe that could determine tiebreakers and positioning. So those are the 3 games I think we need to pay attention to, especially week 9, because if the Falcons want to consider themselves a playoff contending team, then you got to beat the Chiefs that are going for a 3-peat. And maybe not beat, but at least you can showcase you're competent, at least give confidence for the rest of the season. Still very early after week 9. The offensive and defensive P goes to Bijan Robinson and Jesse Bates III. I was going to give it to Judon, but I feel like that maybe was me a little bit too hyped on the Judon train. But Jesse Bates has been proven to be one of the better safeties out there in the NFL. So I feel like he will still carry that defense moving forward. And we'll see what they do with everything combined. Like I said, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of players that you just want to see. Can Kyle Pitts finally be? How much are going to let Bijan Robinson run the ball? Kirk Cousins, is he going to be a 4,000-yard passer, or he's going to be under, because Bijan Robinson is going to take 90% more of the carry than he had before? There's a lot of question mark about this Falcon team. And Raheem Morris, which I'm kind of glad he finally got another head coaching him after his long carousel from Tampa. So that's how I feel like these will be your MVP. And like I said, one of them might be the MVP, like I do at the end of my videos, but this one just feels like it's going to be one of these two, and not surprise either one. Verdict: even if they don't win the division, I still see them going to the playoffs. I still feel like they're going to the play. They're going to be a playoff-bound team. Now, they could be one and done. Like, they get into the wild card as like the 6th seed or 7th seed, and they lose to, Philadelphia or San Francisco, because of low ranking going against a top-ranked team. So that could be a situation there. Funny enough, in the schedule, Atlanta plays Tampa and Atlanta, the two teams that people are talking about, including myself, that are going to be fighting for the division. They play each other twice within the first half of the season. And then the second half, there basically is, I guess, scoreboard watching for the rest of the season. So we don't know how threatening that's going to be, because the Falcons and the Bucs are going to be done by week 10. So, whoops. But to me, that's how I feel about Atlanta. And like I said, I lived in Atlanta for about 10 years. I know how playoff hungry the fans are. So that's how I'm feeling about Atlanta. So that's number 2. So I guess it's kind of safe to say the next 2 teams are teams that probably not going to make the playoff. But one team in particular, I just don't see them going as low as everyone else does. So in 3rd place, I have the Aints. I have the New Orleans Saints. I still see them, 9-8. They went 9-8 last year. I can't help but feel like they're a lot better than their record shows it. I know there's a lot of question mark about Derek Carr. Now there's comment about Spencer Rattler, which I know I made a comment about that, about he could potentially become the starter. But I've heard even reports from NFL Network, I think it was the Rich Eisen show, where they talked about that if Spencer Rattler becomes a starter before October, that means Dennis Allen's spot in the whole Saints thing fails. I still think there's a lot. I still think the defense is going to be the strength of it. Chris Olave is definitely their offensive star. But to me, week 2 at Dallas and then week 4 at Atlanta. So the first 4 weeks, you got 2 strong opponents in your conference and division within the first quarter of the year. And I would believe the first quarter of the year, at least to me, doesn't really dictate the rest of your season. You can go 0-4 and yes, statistically won't be in your favor, but I would say it doesn't mean you're out. Doesn't mean you're out of the playoff pick. Doesn't mean you're out of it. It just means you got a longer way to go. And with 17-week season, and now I keep hearing they want to push to 18, the more games there are, the more I feel you can have time to adjust and come back. But that's if you are a good team and a good coach, because that's what makes us showcase true championship caliber. So to me, that's something where I feel like, Saints, 6-11 is your floor, and that's if like the Derek Carr experiment fails. Spencer Rattler came in, he's not ready. A lot of veterans on the defensive and offensive side just showcasing their age. Alvin Kamara, Cameron Jordan, all that just showcase their age. Maybe if you get to that point of the season, maybe they start trading some of their star players, like Lattimore gets traded to, Kansas City because they do things like that or whatever. So the Saints might have to just, sell stuff just to get themselves ready for the upcoming draft. And your offensive and defensive MVP, Chris Olave is your best offensive weapon. I know Alvin Kamara is there, but I feel like Alvin Kamara doesn't have the same fear as he once had back in the day. And Chris Olave is the only offensive threat receiver, and I really feel like he needs support to really showcase how great he is. But still, he comes in, he does his job and does it well. Defensively, I said it when I was I didn't say it publicly, but I said it in my review of the Saints that it's Pete Warner, who just got a contract extension. Good for him. I feel like he is going to be the new captain of that defense moving forward with, people like, Cameron and Dotson. So that's how I feel that Warner's going to be the defensive captain of that team. And I feel like he is proven to me that his, size and ability does not dictate his lack of strength in the NFL. So rooting for him, definitely a big fan. Verdict: if the division goes as it was last year, I say the Saints will still get a top, 15, and maybe they get the 18th pick, and they'll just miss the playoffs. Like I said, if the schedule, if everyone's ceiling is consistent, Tampa's 10-7, Atlanta's 10-7, Saints 9-8, and when I talk to Carolina, I would know about their ceiling. They will just be one of those teams that just misses. It's hard because you're thinking about the NFC West, the NFC North, which seems to be a juggernaut, and of course the NFC East, that maybe 9 wins won't guarantee it, and I won't be surprised if 10 wins might not guarantee it. That's how I feel formidable a lot of teams in the NFC are, but I feel like 11, 12 wins might be the max in the entire NFC. That's just what I'm feeling. But yeah, so Saints, you just miss it. Sorry. And now, I guess I don't have to hide it much longer. Until we find out otherwise, the worst team in the NFC South again. Goes to sweet Carolina. Yes, copyright. You guys were so bad last year. You guys technically had the number 1 pick. And now you're here with a new head coach who just was the offensive coordinator last year, and then he helped another quarterback. So I guess you're thinking he's 2-0 with first-time new quarterback, developing them to get them their money and their contracts and star status. So I guess you're hoping to do the same. But I can't help but feel like the Burns loss is going to hurt defensively. It's going to hurt. And your 3 games of importance, I think the big ones you look into is week 5. Maybe not so much as the competition, but just narratively speaking, because Chicago comes in thinking, hey, our starting quarterback was your first overall pick. And also, my number 1 wide receiver for my team was once your pick. So maybe it could just be a way of just mocking the Panthers as Chicago comes in and whoop their tail. But maybe it could be a way for the Panthers to steal a win from Chicago and kind of showcase that we are not the same old Panthers of last. And then, of course, week 9 against New Orleans and a week 12 versus Kansas City. I'm not so much looking forward to the Kansas City game because for all we know, Kansas City could be hitting their stride and Carolina could just be in the way. It could be like a 41-9 kind of game. It could be like that badly. But week 5 and week 9, by the 10-week mark of the season, let's see where Carolina is. Let's see where they're at. But I still have a 7-10 as your highest. 5-12. It'll be better because you can't go worse than 2 wins. But if you don't get at least 7 wins, I will be like, you guys have a much bigger road to relevancy than we anticipated. And maybe we need to start adding the word bust to a certain young quarterback. Maybe. We're very impatient in the NFL when it comes to labeling people certain things without any time. Your offensive and defensive MVP, I'm giving it to Hubbard. I think Hubbard has been your best player when you guys are going through a quarterback situation with Donald and Dalton and Rice and everything and Walker and Mayfield. I think Hubbard has been the most consistent running back. And even when you got Miles Sanders, I was like, Hubbard's still proven to be worth. So I feel like, dude, let's give Hubbard the attention. And I feel like Hubbard is going to be the reason more so than any other new receiver that you guys got to make the Panthers offense be somewhat more formidable than it once was. And I think check down, screen passes, runs of Hubbard could be the reason. So to me, Hubbard's offense MVP. And with no Burns and no one really else to speak of on that defensive side and Derek Brown being so successful, I got Derek Brown being your defensive MVP candidate. As for your draft situation, your verdict, you're a top 10 pick, dude. I might even say top 5. That's how bad it could look. But I'll be nice and say you guys did so much better. You guys are number 10 in draft. Maybe. And maybe you can steal a win. I mean, you stole a win from Atlanta in a very bad game, but you stole a win from Atlanta. So maybe you can steal a win from a division. And that can showcase progress. But right now, it's still a big, I don't know, guys. I don't know. And that is the Carolina Panthers. And that's the NFC South. So, yeah, Tampa wins the division. Atlanta gets in the playoffs. Saints just miss it. And Carolina goes back to the drawing board for the 2nd straight year with Young as their quarterback. Hopefully it does not lead to the owner having a temper tantrum My hair is obviously perfect for this. And, fires the head coach halfway through the season again. But that's the NFC South. So that means we're going to stay in the South and we're going to go to the AFC South. So next time we'll see which of the AFC South is going to make the playoff. Do we see surprise? Do we see the status quo? Or am I just repeating what thousands of others have said before? Stay tuned. Until then, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you very much for watching.